Hello and good evening. Welcome to the 84 Million podcast. We're here with John. He's found on X at Johnez, Johnez, not John Easy, not Johnny Z, not John Z. I was wrong on 3 counts, but what do we say about Johnez, John? He's a voice for Litecoin, an active member of the Litecoin community. He's one of the primary contributors to lookintolitecoin.com. A primary source, in our opinion, for broad Litecoin coverage. He also launched the resource called litecoinlinks.com, sort of a Litecoin content aggregator, if you will. John carried the MWEB Torch very early on as member number 3. And I'll add he's a true Javaphile and a member of the Litecoin Coffee Club. I had to throw that in, John.
That's fair.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I was tempted, or I am tempted, to purely graze on this episode and just see where we end up. However, I do have some questions I wrote down like every other guest. So
okay,
we're going to try to follow some sort of order here. So I do have some notes. Perhaps we begin with your story. What brought you into Litecoin, and what led you to the Litecoin community, and to the degree that you are involved?
Let's think. Well, I got into crypto around late 2016, 2017. I had, just like everybody else, I had heard about Bitcoin, but way early on, and the one crazy friend talking about, hey, yeah, okay, sure, fine. But 2016 was probably around it. I had heard about it. I do have a technology background. I work in technology. So at the time, I'm like, okay, let's look into this a little bit more. I learned about mining. And then I just decided, kind of out of hobby, boredom, interest, learning, I will go that route. I said, I'm not going to buy anything, but, if I can mine something, and there's some value there, let's play around, use it as a learning experience. Well, like everything else I get involved in, it escalated quickly. And, before that, before I knew it, I had like a $2,100 a month power bill. And my wife's like, what's going on? So that lasted for a little while. And I picked probably the absolute worst time in the history of mining to heavily invest in mining equipment. So that was quite the learning experience in and of itself. And had I just made other investments instead of in hardware at the time, it probably we'd be having a very different conversation today. But no, I gained invaluable experience. I don't do much mining today. I've got a couple hobby rigs, if you will. But that's kind of how I got started in crypto. And then Litecoin, I actually started with mining. I did a lot of mining with this website and pool called Mining Pool Hub, and you used to be able to collect in whatever cryptocurrency you wanted. You could mine Ethereum, get paid out in Litecoin or Bitcoin or whatever else, or mine Monero and get paid out in Litecoin. And that's basically what I had done. I would mine Ethereum when it was profitable, and I'd cash out to Litecoin and or Monero, and just take those into self custody. And that's kind of how I got started. Then like everybody else, I went through I think I'm a trader phase. Learned very quickly, or no, rather, unfortunately, not quickly enough that I'm not. And that's just not a place for me. So after that, I kind of accepted my new reality and figured, my timeline is pretty far out. I think it'd be fantastic if, everything mooned tomorrow or today or later, but I don't necessarily, that's not why I'm here. It's not, sure, it'd be great. Anybody who says otherwise is lying, but there's plenty of time to DCA and, go from there. So, you don't have to get rich quick. And, if that's even the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think for some people it's the goal. A lot of shimmering, glittering things going up very quickly. And sometimes you can hop on and maybe ride something like that.
Sure.
But it's few and far between. And I think a lot of things are just general garbage. I've come around to that. I think like you, I've had a progress in my own life and I still have some altcoins. I do.
Right. Yeah.
Not many, to be fair. I've removed many over the years, and I'm realize I'm really interested in less and less. I'm really, really interested in Litecoin. I haven't given up on Bitcoin. I have not. I think some Litecoiners might be starting to, and I think that's fine, by the way, because
I see it. Yeah.
Litecoin stands alone, and it should stand alone on its own right. But there's something about Bitcoin I still see as the crypto reserve currency, if you will. It's kind of the first of its kind. Of course, my true heart is with Litecoin, and then I've come along to really start to admire Doge, and I've talked about that a little bit on this
Yeah.
show.
Uh-huh.
I used to not take it too seriously. I do think it's kind of like a copper if we're going to take this whole new variety of the metallic standard, you know. So
Yeah.
so a Nakamotoism, a Nakamoto standard. So those three are my favorite. You mentioned time preference too. I think they're going to be around for a while. Some of the other ones, I don't know. I've seen some different ones disappear real quick, or just have, you know, I know you've mentioned here and there about the Solana issues that we've seen, despite the praise and accolades that chain has received. You know, we see that with some other projects. I didn't know you were a miner. Do you follow any mining anymore?
No, not so much anymore. You know, I'm really intrigued by those Locotech cards. Those look pretty wild, and you know, I'm like, oh man, you know, there's a lot of PCs in the building. You know, we can sneak a couple of these here and there. You know, nobody notice. But no, unfortunately, right now they're a little too rich for my blood. So you know, maybe secondary market down the road a little bit, I'll get to play with one, but not right now. And you know, they should probably be proven a little bit too. And you know, I don't need to be in that class.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And then as far as, you know, Litecoin goes, you know, I've always seen the value to Litecoin. I do see it as the silver to Bitcoin gold. I think there's a tremendous bit of value in the perfect substitute theory. You know, we see it every single time that you know, Bitcoin gets pegged with transactions, Litecoin picks up. It's there. It's not you know, every single time the conditions are met, it's the same outcome. So it's only a matter of time.
And we're seeing that now, are we not?
I would say so. You know, all of the, you know, our fundamental metrics, if you will, continue to rise, continue to hit new all-time highs. You know, I won't proclaim to say that that's going to have anything to do with the current price of it, but what to me it implies is usage and actual utility, and people finding value and seeing it as a you know, a viable means of exchange. And that's what's important, is that people can, you know, do this unobstructed by any third party, permissionless, as they see fit. And that's really, for me, what a huge part of this is the financial freedom and the ability to have control of an asset, ultimate and total control, and nobody can tell you what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something special. I know with BitPay, we've seen Litecoin eclipse several times Bitcoin in terms of what are people using for payments. And of course, BitPay, I believe, is the largest cryptocurrency processor, like for payments out there. So that's pretty significant. And then I think in the past 24 hours, maybe 48 now by the time of this recording, per some metrics you can look up online, a significant amount of value was moved over Litecoin, and much higher than the amount of value moved on Bitcoin. So,
and I think that was it the number of transactions Surpass as well. Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. So I'm saying, as we see Bitcoin now hitting what, $7 to $10 fees, the mempools being filled. You mentioned a perfect substitute. Why Litecoin was on the show. He talked a lot about that kind of theory that, you know, if people are going to use Bitcoin more, whether it's ordinals or general transactions of large volumes of fiat equivalents, whatever it is, it's going to fill up. Prices are going to rise, and our people will not have opportunity to use Bitcoin like we've enjoyed. And I think that 100%. I think that will only get worse. Now, there are Lightning layers, second layers, and privacy liquid, things like this that you can do. But using Bitcoin on chain as a person-to-person electronic cash system is going to be increasingly difficult or expensive. or both. So with
100%.
that being said, I do think that is a strong case for Litecoin because I mean, we can move, gigantic volumes for next to nothing, and
Right.
and quickly.
And on chain, like being on chain and the ability to self custody and like that's the feature. You know, you can try to scale away from that, or you're adding layers and this that, but ultimately you're taking away from the core of the ideal, and that's not for me. Like I need to be able to afford on chain, or to be able to afford self custody. You know, if I'm making, or to put yourself in the third world example, if you make a $10 a day is your living wage, and you make that, and then you purchase Litecoin or Bitcoin rather at the end of your pay period with whatever you can spare, whether you got $60, $80, and then 10, 12% of that's going into fees, not just from the exchange, from the exchange, then you have the Bitcoin fee on top of that to get that to you. You're gonna maybe lose 20 to 30%. And it's going to become a luxury to be able to transact in Bitcoin, and maybe that's supposed to be the case. Maybe that level of security that currently exists on Bitcoin, that's arguably overkill, is there for a reason, and is to be able to transact at that level. But
Yeah. I think the third world case is interesting, and I think it may have been lost on some of the community to consider that. I know that was a quite a compelling argument for the unbanked in third world countries, let's say a decade ago. That was kind of the humanitarian angle, to allowing people with cell phones in their hand, but they're hundreds of miles from a bank and they don't have vehicle or transportation or whatever, like we would enjoy in the first world, that they can use Bitcoin. Well, that seems to be further and further from grasp of those communities. So I think Litecoin in this sense also it shines. So we agree. What a surprise.
yeah, absolutely. And and again, I'm no Lightning expert, but it looks like there's a little bit of tumult in Litecoin, or excuse me, in Lightning Land lately.
What's going on
And
there?
I do have to do some more research in there before being able to comment. But again, those are problems that you don't have on the base layer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's still an element of trust with anything beyond on chain.
Mm-hmm.
So to get on and off the Lightning channel costs money too, even though
Right.
once you're on it, it's very inexpensive. So Litecoin has Lightning too. We may need it one day. Currently, we don't. I don't use it. I tried to set up a Raspberry Blitz node, and it was a nightmare. I had one for Litecoin and Bitcoin, and yeah, not exactly the greatest user experience in the world. But maybe I tired too quickly. But you shared with me. We're gonna bounce all over the place.
Sure.
You shared with me that video that the Litecoin Foundation had published on MWEB. You were
Mm-hmm.
the voiceover. So how did that happen?
Oh man. So I work a little bit, and as you mentioned, in looking at Litecoin with Shan, who's very well known amongst the Litecoin community, and he had started putting together these little generated videos, and he was using some like AI generated voiceover script, and I was like, man, this is really good content, but that's just not appealing to me. I said, hey, let me just go home. Let me try something. I'll record this really quick and send it over to you. And I did, and I thought it was an improvement, which is, I got to say, a pretty big thing, because as with most people, I'm not a huge fan of my own voice. So put that out there and have him go through it, and it was pretty well received. And then after that, Imagine Mind had reached out to him to ask if he had known, or somehow he had said, or Shan had directly referred him to me for that MWEB video, and there was also a Halving video as well. And so I said, sure. And, as far as I can tell, he's a professional video producer. That's what he does for his 9 to 5. And, so he gave me some pointers, told me how he wanted things recorded. And I just went to town, gave it over to him, and, he made me sound good.
Yeah, it did. It did sound good. It does sound good. They're still available. We'll track them down and link them in the show notes. But I had no idea that was you. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not I'm not very vocal when it comes to myself.
I've noticed your tweet volume has diminished. What is going on?
Just busy, 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 busy.
I know. Sometimes I wonder about my mental health when I'm on there because we stay up to date, but it's like the scrolling, the scrolling, the scrolling. I was actually one of those individuals. Um, have you heard of a light phone?
No.
Not a lot of folks have. However, you can look up the light phone. It's an extremely minimalist phone, and I used it during COVID and beyond. And I
Uh-huh.
actually really enjoyed it because aesthetically it was beautiful. So I liked the design. And then others say, well, why don't you just turn off the apps in your, iPhone, or why don't you just get a dumb phone? And why would you spend that amount of money for this device that does nothing in
Okay.
a day and age when we have so much? I said, because it allowed me to declutter my mind. So the light phone, I no longer use it, but what did it have at the time? It had text messaging. It had a podcast feed in it. It had a calculator, phone calls, and I think an alarm clock. That
That's
was it.
perfect.
That's all
That's
it did.
perfect.
Some people, I guess, used them as companion phones, but I had it as my primary, and man, I felt good. But nonetheless, I'm here and I'm I'm tweeting. My volume might have diminished too to a degree, but we appreciate when you talk. So I'm glad you're on
No,
the
no,
show.
thanks. I
I'm glad I
appreciate
know
that.
that you're engaged in the realm of language because you do write and you do publish things. You know, so it ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's all peaks and valleys
Yeah.
with me. If I've got something on my mind that I've got to say, I do say it. I try to be witty with some memes. I do think that somewhere we're lacking. I'm not the
Mhm.
world's greatest meme maker, nor do I pretend to be, but occasionally I think I hit one or two. I
Yeah, that's
had a
better than
good pop
me.
up.
That's better than I've done. So bravo there. Another video, I will say, I do love your Litecoin Coffee Club video.
Oh
uh,
yeah.
I still watch it from time to time just because, well, you enjoy the process and the beauty and the art of the grind to the pour. You have the beautiful funnels, and you really dial it in even better than me. I do pour overs too
It's
here
it's
at the
it's all
house,
about consistency.
but I
That's it. You
generally
just got to
eyeball
get
it
the
and
same
kind of do
result.
it. Yeah, I know, but it was a beautiful little aesthetic that you had in the music, and I really enjoyed that video. So, the Litecoin Coffee Club, you are indeed a member, and I think from the first batch, but I don't remember.
I believe so. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Actually, that
I
was the
think
first batch because there's
that
only
was the first
three,
batch.
but that was
I think
the blue
I
bag,
think my wife accidentally got rid of the bag, because she assumed it was garbage, like most empty coffee bags.
of course.
So I can't fault her too much, but I had intended to keep that. The second round, I smartened up and I ordered two bags, so I do have one in the private stock that'll
Yeah.
remain there for indefinitely.
Well, fair enough.
And I'm drinking the very last of my Litecoin Coffee Club beans
At
at the moment
at this hour of the day, I'm
at this
honored.
hour, and it will not affect me at all. I'll be able to go to sleep as soon as we're done here.
I have a mug of mushroom tea that has no caffeine in it and tastes okay. But I can't do late night
No, but I
brewing.
mean, like that is a great campaign you did. And it should be mentioned, all of the great things you do for Litecoin and the community. And quite frankly, I think like your designs and stuff, you've hit a lot of home runs lately, my friend. Things are pretty awesome.
I'm
Um,
humbled.
well, I've got my Magnus candle over there. I see, Holy Charlie there and at the office because I ordered like five of them and no idea.
You know, I don't share anything about shop stuff, and it's nothing that anybody's going to retire on. It's a labor of love and
No,
care
sure.
and a community. But it's funny to observe the traffic patterns. I'll just say that what people choose and how they choose it. It's
Hmm.
certainly interesting. But anyway, we're not a surveillance operation, but I do get to
No,
see
no,
all the
absolutely. But
orders.
you got to do the best for your customers.
Yes, that's right. It's part of the commitment and service. But no, I think the coffee club's neat. It's super small batch. I will say I will announce it on the podcast this evening. We do have a final batch coming out, probably early December, rather than our first two batches, which was 100% Honduras based on the region. We've actually, because I've been getting with my friend Jimmy of House Roots Coffee, I said, can we do an alternate variety? Can we just switch it up a bit so I'm not releasing the same coffee every time? And we did get some Peruvian beans that he's worked with before. So this next batch will be 100% Peru. I am working on a label. This time we'll have a little fun, and there will be a surprise in 2 of the bags, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
So stay posted for that. Follow the Litecoin Coffee Club, LTC Coffee Club, just as it sounds, on Twitter. Of course, 84 million on Twitter. And we will post an order page soon, but it'll be the last one of the year. I think it'll be fun. And like I said, there will be a little surprise in 2 of the bags that'll be issued at random. I'm going to have them earmarked, so I don't know which ones they are because I keep the coffee too. And initially was started because I ordered so much of their beans because I love them. But I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe we can do something for Litecoin here. And it's been a beautiful thing, a small thing, but a beautiful thing. And you've been involved with it.
It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate the involvement that we've had, that other people can enjoy these things kind of together. And I think it's special. And every single batch, and this next one is confirmed, he's getting payment in Litecoin. So we're doing the real deal with actually using Litecoin as money. So that's enough of my pitch, but stay out for that, or I should say, stay posted for that. More will be revealed in the coming days. We're working on it. So I think that's pretty cool. I wish we could just talk about coffee. But
let's talk about coffee.
We're here for Litecoin, but I want to sit down and listen to you tell me about coffee and why is it worth going with a specialty bean? What do you enjoy drinking? What is it that you like about coffee? We'll rabbit trail a little bit. You can go off about coffee.
Yeah. No, coffee for me, it's really about the process. I enjoy going through the whole kit and caboodle, grinding my beans, weighing it out, checking my ratio, and trying to kind of predict my result while I'm brewing and then comparing against what I thought I was brewing in my head. That's kind of the game I like to play with myself. And quite lately, I've been just going with a couple different coffee of the month, small single origin companies. Most recently is Driftaway Coffee I think they're out of Brooklyn or New Jersey, somewhere over there. They're not far. Unfortunately, they don't have a storefront. I'm on the East Coast, just outside of New York. So I've inquired to see if I could take a ride down there, but they don't have any public traffic, unfortunately. But I gotta say, I generally skip around with a lot of coffee. I try to try as much as I can. My standard go-to for my super automatic is Lavazza Super Crema. I just think it's a great all-around medium body coffee, and it just works well as an espresso, as a drip. It's a good coffee. Can't beat it.
So you do pour over, but you also have an espresso machine, and you're making other drinks.
Yeah, I make all sorts of coffee drinks.
Very, very
except
good.
When it comes to, excuse me, hello, Sammy. I have to pay the dog tax.
Oh, understood. The Doge is in the room.
Yeah.
The resident Doge. Very good. Well, I know I grew up in Pennsylvania, and actually I'm here in Texas. And one of the cafes I've liked nearby, he was like, "Oh, you got to try this coffee. I love it." And he's from, I think he's from Egypt, but really cool guy, and he gets coffee from all over the place. He's like, "You got to try this," and he makes these fun things for me every now and again. I haven't seen him in a while. Probably need to go visit him. But he mentioned passenger coffee, and then I'm like, "Oh, this is from Lancaster, not far from where I lived," and it's kind of funny to see kind of the small world of coffee too. And then I did like them, and I bought a bag from him, a few bags from him.
I take a trip to Lancaster every year.
There, very good. So you're Northeast. Very
yes,
good.
Sir.
I was there a few months ago. I have family there, but I enjoyed their coffee. And then they released the Necessary Coffee as kind of like a side project. I don't know if you've tried them. They're pretty good too. But
cool.
The world of coffee is wide, so we get to enjoy it. There is a small subset within a subset that we've discovered with Litecoin Coffee and Litecoiners into coffee. So
there's quite a few.
You need to publish some like how-to videos or whatever, or give us a lecture and we'll publish it.
Yeah, I'll work on something. But I figured, what was it? I was just I woke up and I was feeling good. I'm like, you know what? Let's give back to Kyle a little bit. Show him that this is an appreciated effort. And so that was the genesis of that. So I ran out in the garage in my bathrobe, and I'm like, I think I got one of those cell phone holding things.
Yeah.
So I set that up and spent about 5 minutes editing it on my phone, threw it up, and tagged you, and the rest is history.
But it was legit. I love it. I will keep watching it. Very, very good. Very good. I hope to get Jimmy on the show. I don't know if he'd be comfortable, but to talk about roasting and the coffee club
Yeah,
and
that'd
kind
be
of
awesome.
about that. I'm hoping he'll do it. I haven't asked him. So we'll TBD. Maybe when we release the bag, we can have a little segment with him or something. Okay, let's get back. We're going to talk about your projects. I do want to talk about Litecoin links and look into litecoin.com. So
Sure.
Let's see. You launched Litecoin links as a resource. I didn't actually know you were behind it. I thought Shan was behind it. It's like, oh, it's built on Litecoin, must be master. Not always true. Not always true. Although we're grateful for him. I know I'm grateful for him. You're a friend of him. And we know the bull market's back because I got 2 fake Shan accounts friending me this week. So,
Right.
I mean, people are moving to impersonate the great Litecoin presence on X. Although he has a lot of enemies too. And that's it just comes with the territory, I guess. But I'm not one of them. But anyway, you launched Litecoin links. And what kind of led you into that? What are you looking to do with it? Just tell us about
I don't know.
Litecoin
I think
links.
we were just probably I'm in a couple small chat rooms with other Litecoiners. Always bouncing ideas off each other. Hey, what can we do as a community to kind of help here, help there, to come up with an idea? And somebody was bouncing around different domain names for something or other, and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, oh, Litecoin links. That's kind of neat. So I checked to see if it was available. It was, and I was like, oh, I could spin up a Google website in about 5 minutes, put a couple things, and that's about what I did, and that's about where I left it. So unfortunately, it doesn't get the attention it deserves, and I think kind of at the time I had looked at it as, I'm just kind of parking this domain for maybe eventually somebody will want this for something. But in the meantime, let's make it useful. So that was kind of the play with it. And then again, trying to get as many eyes as we can to look into Litecoin.
Mm-hmm.
I set it up as a relay for any new posts that we were doing on lookintalitecoin.com on Twitter. So that exposure actually kind of allowed it to grow pretty quickly, at least its Twitter presence. But no, it's as I'm sure it's a labor of love, and it comes in ebbs and flows, and this was at an ebb, and now I'm in a flow, but we're going to ebb again soon. And I do have some ideas for the website. There's a lot that changes, a lot more out there. I think I've got maybe a minor reference to the first I think what are those guys? Lightverse.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more. I mean, they're great, but there's so much more new in the ecosystem since then. We've got, more.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think you're going to see more traffic coming. I'm seeing, we could probably just do a Google Trends search, but I know with traffic on 84 million, traffic on the podcast, and I'm grateful for all
sure.
these
I
things,
mean, I
by
don't
the
know if you
way.
saw Shan posted
It's
traffic
very
graph
similar. There's a
from looking at Litecoin.
mirroring. Yes. And so I'm saying we're here now. We're building now. Litecoin links is a resource. People will find it because they're going to need, and they're going to, and they're going to need, and they're going to need to find it. And they're going to need to find it because they're looking and they're searching and they're saying, what can I learn about this cryptocurrency that no one's telling me about? That's been around second to Bitcoin, essentially, at least the top
no
ones.
downtime,
Right.
active user base, and
It's terrific.
No bullshit shill marketing,
Yes.
no VCs.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely correct. So Litecoin links, its time is coming. And I think Litecoin's time is coming. We've already had a lot of good things. This isn't a show that I talk about price a lot. I don't have anything against talking about price or cycles or whatever we want to look at. I don't. I think it's inevitable that it will continue to appreciate over time against fiat currencies and things. But I do think it's only going to be used more, adopted more, available at more locations. Again, we saw kind of an
100%.
institution today listed the whole backed exchange deal. They've added Litecoin. There's a reason Litecoin is added to these
Everywhere.
platforms everywhere. So anyway, Litecoin links, everyone. You've heard it from this gentleman here. He's responsible for that. So Litecoin links, give him some traffic and share it. It's a good resource. That if anyone is looking for kind of a generalist, where can I find this, that, and the other thing, you may be able to find it on Litecoin links. So we're grateful to be on it. And I believe Look Into Litecoin is on it. And Look Into Litecoin, tell me if I'm wrong, it's kind of an allusion to Look Into Bitcoin, is it not?
Yeah, I think that's where Shan originally had gotten the idea from. And then it's kind of evolved over time. Originally, it was kind of like a one size fits all, one stop shop for any kind of information. Shan had listed categories for every possible avenue of information. He had meme pages. We had the Litecoin quiz, which is still available there. But tons and tons and tons of kind of, it was not to say it was disjointed, but it was very disjointed. And then it kind of evolved over time and kind of really has become more of like an online Litecoin news source, with no bias towards Litecoin whatsoever.
It is a Litecoin news source.
Yeah, and it's kind of evolved into that, and it goes well. I mean, we get a little bit of recognition here and there. Not that that's what it's for. It's really to push the narrative that Litecoin is here for everybody, and it is a viable contribution to the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it is the go-to place for information regarding Litecoin updates and just anything happening, traditional stuff, like the back. Shan put a post up today about it. But if you're looking for what's going on in Litecoin broadly and globally, you're going to find it at Look Into Litecoin. And I know you've written a number of articles there. So tell us about crypto journalism, Litecoin journalism.
Well, there was a period of time where, it was like around MWEB activating, where it just seemed like there were every day there was a couple or two or three noteworthy items. So, it's not hard. The topic comes out that you want people to know about. You have a platform. You write a little article about it, push it out, make sure it's well written, easily digestible, and you push it out and see where it goes. And we got quite a bit of traction on some stuff, and Shan was pretty good about inviting other kind of guest writers who really kind of had something to say. There was this anti-maximalism editorial that was written on there that's fantastically written. It's done really well, pulling in different voices from the community, allowing them to, we do solicit people. If anybody listening would like to write an article for Look Into Litecoin, just shoot me a DM and, we can go from there. Anybody's welcome, as long as you have something interesting to say, or not interesting to say, just informative. But that's really that. I'd again, like with everything else, I'd love to have more time to do things with that. But quite frankly, the reality is, by the time you have an idea, I should write this, if you check it, Shan's already written it. So you don't have the opportunity.
He does work full-time on Litecoin, as he says.
He sure does. That is 100% fact.
I tend to believe him. Who else is writing on, like, what are the other columnists or contributors that you know of that are writing there?
As actively writing, I'd say right now it's probably primarily just Shan again. But we've had Why Litecoin has put some excellent contributions. Indigo has some earlier contributions. He's gone on and created the Nakamoto magazine.
Nakamoto Mag,
it is.
Correct.
Nakamoto Mag, and that's a wonderful resource too. He does a phenomenal job of breaking down advanced economic topics and technical topics where they're easily digestible, and you can at least get a topical understanding of these higher level things, and that's invaluable to everyone, even if you do have a solid understanding of the topic. But to that point, we probably now would be a great time to start soliciting more voices and bringing in people to help spread the Litecoin message and further evangelize it, because it needs it, it deserves it. For what Litecoin offers to everyone. People should hear about it and they should know about it. And as happy and satisfied users, it's kind of it's it's kind of our role. That's part of the decentralization. I never have gotten upset at, the foundation for not marketing or doing. They're a nonprofit. They're there. They do what they can with what they've got, and that should be appreciated. And I can tell you, I for one do very much appreciate it. And anything that can be done outside of that by community, by their own volition, is gravy, and should be encouraged. And that's kind of where I come from with any of the Litecoin advocacy that I'm doing. It's just trying to give back. I can't stand seeing the bullshit narratives, or the Charlie sold a top on everybody. So you got to push back. You can't let that shit stand. Quite frankly, I do think, like, it feels like to me that we're finally getting towards the end of that narrative's lifeline. Nobody could. It's so long ago now where it's not impactful. It just doesn't matter. And that's great. And maybe that was the play all along, to let it be a slow bleed. But I 100%, even to that point, I respect Charlie's decision. He earned his coins fairly, just like everybody else. He can do whatever the hell he wants with them, just as you and I can. He earned that right, and and bless that right upon us. So that's it. And now there is the conflict of interest is dissolved. It doesn't exist anymore, perceived or otherwise.
Yeah.
So, it's things like that. I can't sit idly by and watch people talk unfair shit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I do believe his actions in many ways vindicate him from what you suggested, the conflict of interest. It's gone.
100%.
He admitted that he has a degree of Litecoin he can operate in for purposes of the foundation, but he's not holding on to the amount that Satoshi holds in the 100%. Bitcoin world.
Or is he?
Well, we don't know at this time. More will be revealed perhaps. But you make a good point too. He earned his as fair as anybody else. It was an even playing field.
100%.
And it was not incumbent on him to need to sell anything, and yet he did.
Right.
So I think that is a very tired argument. If anything, again, I think it's a strength that says it's that much more decentralized.
Absolutely.
But, we get it, but unfortunately, some people can still pass that along. But I do believe you're correct that is weakening. So hopefully we're not seeing too much more of that. But if it is, we get to tell them this.
Right. It's it's almost like it's great now because the counterpunch is so strong. It's like, bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It almost creates an inroad to just say, "Oh no, you're as respectfully or disrespectfully as you'd like. You can properly correct the individual."
And you may, and we shall. We should.
It's incumbent upon all of us.
And you heard it from John. Looking into other areas of Litecoin, ordinals, LTC20 tokens. You mentioned the Liteverse earlier. Of course, MWEB. What are you with Litecoin? What interests you these days? What are you currently doing in Litecoin?
I'm hanging out in Litecoin. I'm comfy here. This is my happy place. But what am I excited about coming down the pipe? I am personally most excited about mobile MWEB support. I think that's really going to be a game changer as far as activity goes. I think we're going to see activity go way up. So another thing I run the bot for the MWEB Litecoin MWEB account or MWEB Litecoin account, which one it is, I can tell you in a second. The Litecoin MWEB account, I actually run that bot that checks the MWEB balance and then reports large pegs, peg ins, no peg outs, just we only report pegs. But so because of that, like I've got the Python script that I wrote to do that runs, every minute. So I can scroll pages and pages and pages and pages of MWEB transactions or, and see when there's peg ins, peg outs. And quite frankly, it's kind of impressive to me, the use that it sees now, considering that it is only available in Core Wallet. So it must be being used economically on some level. because the amounts and the frequency, it just, this is beyond people testing. This is beyond people, that was last year, you and I were in there putting our, oh, we're going to put this one Litecoin in. Am I going to lose it? Is it safe? You unpeg it, peg it in, peg it out. Everything's
Yeah.
great. Wow, this is awesome. Let's pass a torch around. I think we're beyond that. The novelty's kind of worn off a little bit. And, what we're seeing is organic use, which is awesome. And it's the barrier to entry right now is so high that I strongly suspect that once it becomes generally available to the public through mobile wallet proliferation, that we're going to see a significant uptick in use. And as David Burkett and others have said, the MWEB really shines the more it's used. The more it used, the more it obfuscates, the more it mixes, the harder the linking turns out to be, and the better the privacy and fungibility turns out. So, and any addition to privacy and fungibility is a big win in everybody's books, and we should all be doing our part to make sure that privacy, is normalized.
I agree, and I'm very excited for MWEB. It works great. It works as great as everything else in Litecoin. But it's a wonderful thing we have that, for example, Bitcoin does not have, Dogecoin does not have. So the three Nakamotos, Litecoin is the one with that fungibility layer, and it's terrific. I do agree it's limited because it's in core. You have to have a node. And once that is unraveled, like you say, on mobile, I think it's gonna be used a lot. And
yeah, it's interesting. I haven't checked the node count in a while, but I was originally a little excited about it only being available in core because I thought it would add to the total number of nodes. It doesn't look like it ever has. We've always kind of, ever since I've been looking, hover around 900 to 1,100 nodes worldwide, which is sad to me.
Yeah.
It's such a easy,
so maybe
minimal
we should
effort
let's
thing
just
that
talk about
everybody
that
could
then.
do.
Let's talk about that. If somebody here is listening, they wonder, what is a Litecoin node? You can't run a node in Ethereum, for example, but you can run a node in Bitcoin. You can run a node in Litecoin. Tell us about a node and how simple is it to run a node?
It is as simple as having enough disk space to pull down the blockchain when you run Litecoin Core. If you download Litecoin Core from the Litecoin Foundation's website, install it on your Windows, Mac, or Unix computer, open it up, install it, and start it. Once that blockchain finishes syncing, and where we're around 100 gigabytes right now, so however long that takes you, once that finishes, as long as you have UPnP enabled on your router or you set up static rules, you become a node and you will participate in the validation of transactions on the Litecoin network, contributing to greater decentralization and security.
So in other words,
yes, please.
So in other words, you download the wallet, Litecoin Core. Many people would say, I'm just downloading a wallet. It's more than a wallet.
100% more than a wallet.
The node is also within the interface. And tell us what a node does and why it's important that we have more of them.
The node broadcasts if you use your own node for your transactions, when you use your node, you broadcast directly to the network. You also pull other broadcasts from the network, and you literally participate in validating those transactions against the ledger. And the importance is, the more nodes on the network, the more agreements there is in the network, and the more decentralized that is, which creates, again, the better transactional environment.
And some resilience too, because they'd have to knock another one out if they wanted to take down Litecoin. So
100%.
So out of the box, without changing ports, is it a node?
I think it depends on your router, because I think UPnP is enabled by default, isn't it?
I had a conversation with Eric Bowman 2-3 years ago on this, and I forget what he said. Because my assumption was out of the box, it is a node, but there's is it a master node or something where you can allow more incoming connections? Again, pardon my language, and I'm a little rusty on this. I do run Litecoin Core. I do run a node. I think it's as easy as out of the box, but I think it can be adjusted, but don't quote me. People should have core. You have MWEB in core, and it is a node. So there are reasons to have core, and again, that's not mobile. Mobile will need to sync to a node.
Right.
But I think people using Litecoin might not be thinking that they can participate directly as a validator or someone that carries the record. Now you can, if you want to, let's say, save a little space on your machine, you can set your node up to prune. And that way you don't have to have the entire blockchain. For example, in Bitcoin, that's becoming extremely cumbersome, and that will eventually become more cumbersome with Litecoin. But there are ways you can set it up to prune. But if you download the entire chain, the entire record of all transactions, you have a copy of it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and as time goes on, storage like that was one of the the continuing arguments for Bitcoin remaining at a 10-minute block time is space and decentralization. But let's be honest, look at the cost of storage today. You can get a 1 terabyte drive on Amazon for $50 right now, which is going to cover you for how many years? Even third world, that's kind of attainable. In certain third world countries, in certain situations. But that it's not a barrier to decentralization anymore, in my opinion, and by no means is it a hindrance to Litecoin's decentralization.
Yeah. Run a node, folks. Download,
right, which
download
again
core.
was a big counter to ordinals and people being very concerned about the filling up people's nodes and taking up unnecessary space. But storage is so cheap and it's going to continue to get cheaper, and blockchains are going to grow predictably. We know how, the maximum size of the Litecoin blockchain in the next 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, we can predict that. And if you look at, storage and prices and where, that's gone, it's not going to be a valid concern if it even is today.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what's the value of having the chain? Is it worth the space? Granted, space is getting cheaper, but let's say it wasn't getting cheaper. Is it worth it?
That's a good question.
What we're getting in these networks, even if we had to pay for it.
I missed the last part of the question.
I said, even if we had to pay for it, would it be worth it? My argument would say, yes, it would be worth it, even if it was increasingly, as I said, cumbersome. And let's say space wasn't getting cheaper. And but for the purpose of preserving what we've got, it is worth it. But thankfully, we have cheaper storage solutions. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I do think there may become if that were the world as it were, there may come a point of diminishing returns where, it is not feasible to support the network at a certain cost. But, I think because of some certain design change, key design decisions, that that's kind of mitigated against. And again, with storage being what it is, it's not something any of us will have to worry about. I really don't think. I was originally against, again, with ordinals. Immediately, my knee-jerk reaction was, this is horrible. This is spam. I don't want your garbage JPEGs on my hard disk space. Like this is sacred transactional space only.
Yeah.
But then I had to step back, take a little bit maybe of a more libertarian through a more libertarian lens through it, and say, what, if the market wants arbitrary data stored immutably on the blockchain, the market wants immutable data stored on the blockchain, and that's what the market's going to get. So I kind of opened my mind to that a little bit. And, now I'm kind of all about it. If it's a functional capability and there's a demand for it and there's economic value there for some people, whether or not I agree with it, that's not part of the equation. If somebody feels that there's value in spending, an asset or value on chain to put something there permanently, forever, immutably, that's totally valid as far as I'm concerned. And then, if you step back even further and you zoom out, I don't think we've begun to scratch the surface of use cases for ordinals and, on-chain data inscription. On-chain monkeys is a great example, I think, with Bitcoin, which, I do hold one of their Karma NFTs, which does make me technically a member. This is not a shill of any kind, but I think they've done some really creative things with the tech and this recursion where they can, basically do layered apps across and share those resources across other ordinals and other inscriptions. I think there's a lot more here than I think people are able to kind of realize. And I certainly haven't, but I can recognize that there is a lot more here. And many, many more use cases than I think people have come up with. And again, I think Litecoin becomes perfectly positioned for that because we have an environment where one of these unknown use cases for ordinals, I like to think something like in-game items, like I don't know if you're familiar with Counter-Strike, but skins are a massive, massive, actually secondary economy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And all of those items, they could be NFTs, they could be blah blah blah, but they're not unique. They're sitting on a database at Valve somewhere, and then there's people who manage that, but it's a lot of black and gray markets for those things, and it's all centrally controlled. It's very odd. So, I see that as a really excellent use case for ordinals. But again, it's a very topical, obvious use case for ordinals. And I think the innovation is going to come from something not so obvious. And I'm really kind of curious to see what does materialize with it, because I think there's a lot there. And it is really kind of a great, there's such a great quality about being able to have that immutable data for whatever the user feels the use case is valid for.
Yeah. I'm still interested in seeing if ordinals will be successfully scrubbed with coin control in and out of MWEB, because that's been questioned and brought up, and I don't know if anyone's tested it, and it's really easy to test that. And I need to do it.
I've also been involved in some of those discussions, but the way I understand it, I think the data would never be scrubbed. At the worst or worst case or best case scenario is that you may break the link between the Satoshi, like the indexer may not be able to make the connection between the data and the individual Satoshi anymore, potentially. But don't quote me on that.
But if that was damaged, you'd kind of lose your ordinal. You'd still have some space accounted for, I imagine, or some data, accounted for, but it wouldn't be. My thing is, if you use coin control, it might be appropriate to go in and out. If you're strictly using a coin control, choosing your SAT bundle, sending it to MWEB to its own address in MWEB, and selecting
and pulling
coin
it
control
out, see what
and pulling
happens.
out. I would be interested to see what the explorers are revealing or what's changing. I think that's all.
Got some time this weekend.
I think that exactly. That's all we'd have to do. It's so simple. Yeah. And yet I have not personally done it. And so shame on me, because I've thought of this before. I'm like, well, we'd figure it out pretty quick if we just did that. And I could probably, you could create an ordinal out of thin air that you don't even care about just for the test, or just send one of your other ones in and see what happens. I've heard that stamps are more durable than ordinals, but that's technically different, and we do not have them on Litecoin yet. We don't have to talk them until now. Yeah, we don't have to talk about stamps. I believe it's an acronym. I will defer to Vlad of the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. Did a good episode with I think the gentleman who implemented stamps on Bitcoin. A pretty lengthy conversation about them, and it's fascinating. We don't have that on Litecoin as of now, but it could be worth looking into if we like this idea of immutability. If it's cool,
I bet we will, though.
And uniqueness per Satoshi or Litoshi. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can still be brought over to Litecoin. Do we need it all? Maybe not. We'll decide. I may not decide any of it. I haven't so far. So that's, like you said, it's bigger than we are. It does what it does. And the good news is I can still use Litecoin as money regardless of ordinals.
100%.
I can use it even better with MWEB. And whether or not you're using OmniLayer, for example, or OmniLite, we can play in all different areas of the Litecoin sandbox and I'll be happy, basically. That sounds so hippie or something, but it's true. It's actually true. My only concern was, like, if you put illegal content on there because governments already hate this stuff,
right?
Then they can be like, look, the chain that's proliferating X, Y, or Z. That would be really bad.
I would agree.
That's my only ultimate concern with these things, and I don't think that's what people are interested in, by the way.
No, I don't think so. Or there's a potential of a bad actor putting bullshit, and I think it happened with Bitcoin Cash, maybe
Hmm.
somebody had done something, nefarious and been better, but it ended up being a nothing burger. So,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, you can't prune chains. I'm sure somebody would develop a way to be able to prune specific data,
Yeah.
if it were that much of a concern. But the reality is, none of it's, you can't look at it anyway. The way I understand it is, you look at the Ordinal's websites kind of as like a web browser for the data on chain. So without
Hmm.
that indexer and that interpreter, it's just it's zeros and ones.
Right. That's
So, and it will
correct.
will remain so. So, there's nothing there until it's materialized.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep. I want to talk about the community. One of your tweets I did find that I liked, and I'm going to bring it up. It said, it's very simple. But you mentioned that Litecoin's community is its strength. And then you had a graphic, which I do not have here on our audio or video. What do you mean by that? Unpack it.
Litecoin's community is our strength. The Litecoin community is its strength. Man, I was prolific that day. Um, I got to tell you, I just think we're kind of like Bitcoin maximalists, but we're not dicks. We treat people with respect. If somebody has a difference of opinion, that's fine. We can hash that out. There's civil discourse, and that's what it's there for. I don't generally walk around telling people who don't share the same viewpoint as I do, morons and idiots. I kind of see that Litecoin's community, we're all pretty solid people from what I see. There's not a lot of people where you're like, ooh, I don't want to, like, and maybe that's the case, and maybe they've been here before me and they'll probably be here after me at some point. But and again, if there are, that's fine. It's a decentralized chain. It can attract people of all walks of life, and that's one of the beautiful qualities of this world of decentralization that hopefully we're continuing to go into, is that I don't have to approve of anybody's participation, and they don't get to approve of mine. So we can all just participate freely, and that's kind of what it's about. And I really think our community kind of embodies that. The people who've been around for a long time are, we continue to, I think push what, are the cornerstones of decentralization. We encourage self-custody, we encourage just education, learning about what you're doing, using the coin, spend and replace, just getting your feet in the water. If you want to play with Bitcoin, play with Bitcoin. If you want to play with some other bullshit, play with some other bullshit. But for me, the only things I'd ever be comfortable to recommending to anyone is proof of work coins. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it for me. I generally stay away from anything that's not proof of work, just for out of matter of principle. I can't, it's a loosely formed, strongly held principle,
Mm-hmm.
and I will die on that hill. But that's kind of where it is for me. Proof of work is the innovation, and that should be protected at all costs. It is, um, that's my thoughts on the matter.
I think so too. In terms of the Litecoin community, what discussions do you think are important that are being had right now?
Right now, well, I've been a little disconnected for past couple of weeks. I've been very busy in my personal life. Nothing bad, just for attention in other places. So I'm a little out of touch at the moment. But generally, I really like to see, like, there seems to be, like, where as a whole we're kind of we're punching back a little bit, respectfully and politely, but a little more aggressively. And I think it's necessary. And I got to tell you, now, like, it's people kind of back down, whereas a year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you comment about Litecoin on anything, and people would jump down. Oh, Charlie sold, oh, shit coin, get out of blah blah blah. But it's kind of not there anymore. Now you check people, and they're like, oh, okay, and they back off. And I think that's kind of an interesting development, and I think a much needed one, because nobody wants to be the punching bag, especially when we all know it's not deserved.
Yeah,
What we,
that's the big one.
what's kind of the shittiest part of it. Like the contributions that Litecoin has made to, just the Bitcoin alone, let alone the crypto community at large, are significant, and they're very, very frequently overlooked and ignored. And quite frankly, the contributions to Dogecoin too, Doge Wikipedia entry mentions nothing about merge mining with Litecoin. Like, that's not even a thing. Litecoin, and Charlie, through that effort, more or less saved Dogecoin to allow it to become and mature into what it is today. And I've really kind of adopted the tail emission narrative with Doge, and quite frankly, it's something I've always liked about Monero. So I do like that is kind of a thing. And I think it's something that, not in our lifetimes, well, maybe in our lifetimes will become more important, but the more time goes on, the more important that's going to become to ensure that security budget remains viable and that the network can continue to support itself and, provide this, free transactional network to the world.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's astounding that is correct. That's still correct about the wiki?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe it is.
Wow. Yeah, that needs to be modded. But I agree with you. I think that the punching bag is ridiculous when it's just so trivial. I think it's almost like you're getting punched because you're maybe a little bit too good, and people don't like it.
Yeah, well,
and by the way, it's okay to be boring.
This moment, there are 0 of 0 results for the word merge on the Dogecoin Wikipedia.
Wow. Does it even mention S script? Probably it does.
Yeah, let's see. It does.
Okay, there's something about S script. Okay, well, Litecoin, it's a pretty significant S script coin, everyone. And Dogecoin is too. Dogecoin is too, but they're together in that. But yeah, I think we're becoming more aggressive. I think we are articulating ourselves better, and I think that, as you said, is needed. And sometimes I wonder, because we're pretty nice people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being nice. I don't want to be the toxic maximalists. We have enough of them. But there is something about standing on your two feet when you are correct, which we are doing, and showcasing strength, when appropriate. Like, I don't believe that there should be the capacity to be a punching bag, maybe. Not saying we don't need to be rude. Again, we need to articulate ourselves successfully and stand on our feet. And I think we do. So I agree with you in that. And
one of the greatest counterpunches, I think, lately, actually, I do have something to add to one of the discussions, was Robbie Coleman down at that Australian crypto convention. And
the pictures of the booth.
The picture of the booth that, it's a dig. Yeah. No, it's quite the opposite. The MWEB take on that booth has been, I think, quite, it's witty, hysterical, and very poignant.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because of course it's just setup, but somebody actually wants to showcase the setup image as the baseline of a tent, 100%. Which is of course absurd, but maybe somebody would carry it away. And I think it was a jab, right? But then thankfully some others showed some other context as well about, oh yeah, by the way, not everything is set up immediately, and it takes time to do these things. So it's just, they're low blows. But yes, I agree. We can spin them and make make some variances on them and redeem them. But it's just, why do people waste their time doing this? If you don't like Litecoin, so don't use it. But you don't have to create.
I would say 90% of the people I challenge back, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're just repeating something they heard somebody else say. Oh, well, Charlie saw. No, actually he didn't. And here's exactly what happened along with the timeline. And no, you're wrong. Okay, we can move along then. But nonetheless, you cut one head off the stake, it grows right back and there's another one.
Yeah.
So, but it's few and far between. And it does seem lately, again, that more people are willing to speak up in support of Litecoin. I could care less what traders say. I'm not a trader. I think this is beyond trading. This is a, it's not to be cliche, but it's a revolution of people taking back power and trying to separate money from state. And that's what it ultimately was and what it should continue to be. And as more and more people seem to wake up, if you will, like it seems that people are starting to see value in that. And the best thing we could do is to be here to support people when they become self-interested in that. I'm less of the belief that you can evangelize people by screaming at them, telling them you need Bitcoin, you need or this, that, or the other. I think you have to let people discover it on their own. They'll become disenfranchised eventually. Everybody does with the system that we're living within. And once they start to do their research, and then once they start to reach out and ask questions, I think the best service we can do to them and to Litecoin is to be there to answer their questions. And you can do it honestly and openly. And you're going to ultimately, if you do just that, you're ultimately going to, arm them with, a good framework to build their own foundation. And if you did your job right, they'll come back and maybe see the same value in Litecoin that you or I do. And if they don't, that's great. But if they do, fantastic too. What more can you do?
Yeah, not a whole lot. My thing is, if you don't like it, just leave it alone. You don't have to
Exactly.
harass the topic. I mean, just the way it goes. But again, that's our opinion. In terms of the community, is there any conversations you'd like us to be having right now?
No,
maybe we're
I kind
not.
of just like this support. I add my voice where I think I can add value. I speak on things that I'm confident in my position on. I generally don't throw my voice in things that I don't know what I'm talking about, because if I'm going to speak, it might as well be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, I kind of just keep an open mind, through the scroll, and if anything piques my interest, I'll contribute. But no, I like all the conversations we have. Sometimes I think we get a little too hung up on maximalism and Bitcoin maximalism specifically, and I think it's a perceivably larger problem than it actually is. It's a vocal minority who has gotten a lot of attention by being as vocal as they can. So it's through positive reinforcement they continue to be vocal, and until something gives, which it looks like, similar to other uh, identity politics, eventually it starts to self-destruct. It eventually starts to hit people on your own side, and then that's when I think that cycle finally gets broken. And I think we're starting to see the cracks form in the maximalist bubble, and I hope we do, because we used to be on the same team. Like that was there was what, Goku and who's the other one? I like, much like you, I do not subscribe to Dragon Ball Z, but whatever, to each their own. I'll play along with the memes, but Goku and Vegeta, right?
Goku and Vegeta, you got it.
Yeah. So, much like that used to be Litecoiners and Bitcoiners. It used to be one of the same. And I think the quicker we get back to that, the better.
I think it's Gogeta when they merge, if I'm correct.
Oh, well, man.
And I've also heard
beyond me
that one of the later seasons that I guess Vegeta actually wins between the fight between Goku and Vegeta. So the underdog takes over. So maybe that's a prophetic word for the space. But I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's fine.
I had to. I think we talked about the community where like the Litecoin community succeeds. Are there any areas where you think we fail?
Where do we fail? I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. I do think that we're not vocal enough. I think we may speak too much to our, just like everybody else, we do kind of tend to create our own echo chamber. I think Grant with Litecoin Underground does a great job of breaking that open. He does have a willingness to talk about anything. And I like what he's done with that. He's kind of taken everybody along through, his educational journey and, where he's gone. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And I kind of think that ethos applies to most of us. We're all here learning. We're all exploring technologies in our each and own ways, and trying to see how this fits in our life, what value we place on it, what we can, how we want to interact with it, and how we want to transact with it, if we do, or if we want to hoard it because we think it's, whatever the case may be. Everybody's along, and I've kind of lost my train of thought and forgot the question, so I'm going to ramble until you stop me.
No worries. You will not be stopped. No, I was just curious if we've talked about, we've succeeded in many ways. We're coming of age. We're standing on our feet. We're speaking to perhaps the maximalists, and I'm wondering, are there any areas which we're failing? And maybe there aren't any, and maybe I shouldn't even say we, because we are individuals. We don't exist as a conglomerate.
Communally, is there anything we're failing at? I don't really think so. Unfortunately, I do think the reality is, as much, I generally don't like to talk about price, mostly because I don't care. I say that sincerely. I couldn't tell you if I'm in the black or red with whatever with my DCA. I don't care. It's not for now. I know that I haven't, invested more than I can afford to lose. I'm comfortable with that. So I'm really not concerned with price. But with that said, I do think, unfortunately, the reality of the world is, with price comes interest. I think we're all well positioned to be able to support that interest if and when it materializes, whether that's, at the, next quarter, or the next year, or the next decade. Solid chance I'll still be here, but, and I'll, I will continue to have, whatever Litecoin, Dogecoin, or, Monero or Bitcoin I've accumulated, and that'll continue to be here, and I'll continue to support the networks as long as they remain viable systems, and quantum computing doesn't destroy proof of work, or whatever the case may be. But no, I don't think we've there's any real shortcoming. I just think the community needs to grow, with maybe some new fresh voices, some people coming into it. But again, like I said, I think maybe some positive price action is the catalyst to that. What's been super interesting with Ordinals and the efforts that like Indigo had made to kind of really lead that charge and bring it over to Litecoin in the quick succession that he did to Bitcoin, which is it's totally admirable, and he deserves a lot of credit for the effort he put in there. But since that's happened, we've really kind of seen the developer pool for Litecoin and Litecoin projects really grow. And I would say almost exponentially, just because of where we were starting from. So it's really interesting to see that kind of development. And again, I think, the more usable use cases there are, the more products that are built on top of Litecoin, the more eyes look at it, the more people are using it, the more adoption there is, the more utility, value will organically grow from there, but at this point, maybe who knows if, our price is artificially low or Bitcoin's artificially inflated. Who knows? But over time, the markets will will answer that question, and then we'll know. And again, to me, Litecoin is so analogous to everything Bitcoin claims to be. And again, having a longer continuous running uptime without error or chain splits, it deserves to be on the stage, and it's about time that it's recognized. And I think we're kind of on the precipice of that, and we're almost there. So like I said, it's an unfortunate reality of the space, or fortunate reality of the space, depending on when and what you bought. But I think we do have to at least sometimes kowtow to price action and market sentiment, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. So something is coming up. Of course, we just had the Litecoin cruise. Good news is the next meeting of the Litecoiners is going to be on land, namely in Nashville, right before the Bitcoin conference. And some of us in the community actually pointed that out. I didn't realize that, but it's absolutely correct. July 24th and 25th. So it's sponsored by the Litecoin Foundation. I will do my very best to attend this. I've been negligent in going the past few too, and for legitimate reasons, but I hope to be there. I'd encourage anybody who would be interested in learning more about Litecoin to consider going to the Litecoin Foundation's Nashville Summit coming up this summer. Do you plan to be there? And in the chicken in your profile photo, will you bring that chicken with you?
Unfortunately, that chicken, Spider-Man, God rest her soul, she's no longer with us. But I may be open in to bringing a chicken with me.
Okay, so you plan to go?
I as of this point in time, I am 100% planning on attending one way or another.
That would be good. I think it'll be a lot of positive energy assembled in Nashville, and we can lead the charge before the Bitcoiners take over. And I hope to see some intermingling. And I think that's probably part of the design too.
Maybe the Litecoin underground could become a an underground trafficking for maxis to Litecoin events where they don't have to, the other maxis don't have to know they went.
We'll find out. We'll find out. I think we've done it today. I think we're running right on time. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, John. It's been excellent. Again, look into Litecoin links, the voice of MWEB, the voice of the Halving in terms of the two videos. And of course, you're found on X, formerly called Twitter, at JOHNEZ, Johnez, or Johnez, as it is appropriately pronounced. Anything you want to leave us with before we end this podcast?
No, sir. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your time and your interest. Hopefully there's I said something of value to somebody out there, and this was all worth it.
I think so, sir, and I do thank you. Thank you.